Hello, lost souls. Welcome back to Scars and Skeletons. Today we are going to be getting quite real, so I do have to give a viewer discretion warning. Today we are going to be discussing some pretty dark things. These are all real life experiences, so if you have issues with domestic violence, abuse, self-harm, mental health, and there's a long list of just viewer discretion is advised. Okay, if you at any point feel like you cannot handle the things that I am talking about, step back, take a minute, and I will see you next time. That is okay. So we are going to be talking about how I became a single mom at 19. We are going to be traveling back to about 2011. Yeah, I know, long time. I was 15. I was 15 in 2011, and I was pretty deep into the Juggalo and Juggalette scene. And I was part of a group on Facebook called Juggalo Island. I met a guy. He lived in a whole other state, and we started talking. This is where viewer discretion does come in right now. I was 15 and he was 23, turning 24. That is something to think about right now. Okay, continuing. We met on Facebook. We started talking. I was very, very open about my age, and he did not care. It kind of started from there. He basically groomed me. Right real. I was already struggling mentally. I was already going through quite a lot of stuff at that time in my life. I was just looking for somebody to talk to and be there for me. And he was like, "Oh, I'll be your Superman," and I fell for it. We talked every day, and yeah. It gradually became worse and worse and worse. So it started off as just, innocent talking, like, "Oh my god, how was your day? My day's good," that kind of a thing. And then it became like well, I really like you, and and then, it's like, "Oh, I like you too," that kind of a thing. But I'm so much younger than you. 7 years. 7 years apart in age. He's like, "Age is just a number." Anyone out there watching, run the other way. If you are talking to a gentleman and you are open about your age and you are underage and you say, "Oh, I am only 15 years old," and he is 23 going on 24, and you tell him, "I'm only 15," and he goes, "Age is just a number," that is a red fucking flag, and you need to run the other way. Okay? Yeah. Basically, we started online dating. And if you want to share this with your teenagers, please do. I do market my podcast as for adults only. But please feel free to share at least part of this podcast with your teenager. I do not care. At one point in time, I was still sharing a phone with my mom, and he started asking for pictures. And then at one point in time, my mom found those pictures, and she wasn't too happy with me. But when you have a grown man telling you how pretty you are, and how much, you're a goddess and all this stuff, and you're already struggling, and you're looking for that reassurance that you're good enough for this world, you fall for it. Especially, you're young and you're impressionable, and I was fucking stupid. I was a child. I didn't know what I was doing. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit. Basically, yep, we kept talking, and then when I turned 18 is the first time that he came to see me in my state. He waited till I turned 18. About, I want to say maybe like 3 weeks after I turned 18, he was in my state. And we met up at a hotel. He stayed for a few days, and I stayed with him there. Within 3 months, he talked me into moving 8 hours away to a whole other state to be with him. I had never lived away from my parents. I had never lived out of my state before. I had never done anything. He had made all these promises like, oh, when you come down here, we'll get you enrolled in school here after summer's done. You know, I'm gonna help you get your life on track. I'm gonna make sure that like you have everything that you need. You know, I'm gonna do everything for you. You have nothing to worry about. You know, I'm gonna take care of you. I'm gonna take care of you for the rest of your life. I want to marry you. I want to have a family with you. I love you. And I believed him. I believed him. I did. The moment that I moved to his state, though, is, when he had me in his control, is the moment that everything changed, though. The first place that we ever lived had no power, and it ran off a generator. And it was a state that it very, very hot, I'll put it that way, like 100 degrees with the humidity. As you can imagine, going from 100 degrees outside to taking ice bath is not good for your body. There was points in time when we had no food. When he would stop working, he didn't want me working because he wanted to control every move that I made. Like I said, this was the first time I had ever lived away from my parents. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was a child. The places that we lived just gradually got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I was essentially trapped. Like, what am I gonna do? I don't have any money. He controlled everything. It was basically, I was at his will and his control for what he wanted me to do. And in no way am I putting this on the Juggalo family or the Juggalo and Juggalo community. That is not what I'm doing. I love them so much. Always will. Always will. But as I was saying, places we lived just gradually got worse and worse and worse. He would constantly be like, you're cheating on me. He would take my phone and make it so that I couldn't talk to anybody, but he would still be like, you're cheating on me, even though like I wasn't leaving the house. I didn't even have a phone. I wasn't doing anything. He would belittle me. He would make me feel like I was nothing. He would say that nobody would ever love me the way that he loves me. And he'd be like, if you ever leave me, I'm gonna exit the world. And he would harm himself in front of me to make me feel bad. He even carved my initials into himself at one point in time to prove how much he loved me. I just did air quotes with my fingers because I don't know if he ever actually loved me. I think he just, yeah. He also believed that he had a lot of mental issues, I think. And me being young, I didn't know what to do or how to help him. And it got to a point where, the only person I had in my life was him. He would believe that he had, a demon in him. And, So he would say that, like, I have, like, my one personality, but then, like, there's a demon in me, so I have another personality. And, like, he would brainwash me to, like, he got me so brainwashed that, like, at a certain point I would believe it. And, you know, it got to be so wild and just such an, I look back on it now and I'm like, what the what but he would talk to other females, but then I would, obviously, because I wouldn't have a phone, I wasn't talking to anybody else, but then he was allowed to talk to whomever he wanted. And at one point in time, he was talking to someone that he said was his cousin. I still, to this day, have never got a definitive answer on whether or not they were related, but later on he did marry this person 3 weeks after I left him when I got pregnant. I got pregnant when we were living in an apartment together. Around the time that I got pregnant, I don't remember a whole lot. I think it's my body's way of trying to protect me, because I think that there's a lot more trauma there than what I can process. But I remember there was one day where he went out to meet the woman that he would later marry, and I had left the house, and I was mad, rightfully so. I wasn't allowed to leave the house, and he got mad. He threw all my stuff outside, and we ended up getting into a fight, and I ended up in the hospital. He then ended up coming to the hospital, carrying me out with an IV in my arm, and then taking me home and taking it out himself because he didn't want to get in trouble for us fighting. It was not much later after that that I figured out I was pregnant. You're not pregnant, you're just lying to me. You just want attention. That's, nobody's ever gonna love you. You just want attention. I know I'm not giving you enough attention right now. You just gotta be patient with me. Shocker, I was pregnant. And shocker, when I proved, I ended up figuring out a way to leave him. And it was probably one of the hardest decisions of my life. I was devastated, but at the same time, it was a decision I had to make, because, like, having a child in the situation would, no child deserves to go through what I was going through, you know? I ended up getting in touch with my family, and I didn't tell them what was going on. I just told them, I want to come home. And there was no questions asked, there was nothing. They just said, okay, we'll come and get you. I remember they came and got me, and I walked into the house to, holes punched in the wall, there was no food in the house, and, it was just destroyed. I mean, I think they could tell that, like, it wasn't a good situation. Just, I grabbed what I could, and I wrote him a letter. I don't even know if I remember what I told him, but I remember crying when I wrote him the letter, and I said, I think I said something along the lines of, I gotta do, like, I truly believe I'm pregnant, and, like, you won't believe me, so, like, I gotta do what I gotta do. I love you, but, like, enough is enough. And I remember on the way back, we had stopped somewhere, and with my sister and her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend now, but I remember my sister had went to the gas station, and I was sitting in the car with her now ex-boyfriend. He looks back at me, and this was the first time I had made eye contact with anybody since they came to get me. And he made eye contact with me, and he's like, "What's going on?" And I just looked at him and I said, "I'm pregnant." And he just nodded his head and he's like, "Okay. Okay." And we finished the drive, the 8-hour drive back home. To what I would call home, because, it was home. Remember, I was, like, so ashamed. Like, I felt like I had failed so bad. Like, both of my sisters had gotten pregnant young before, like, they were married, and, like, I was so determined that, like, I wasn't gonna be like them. And, like, I had truly believed that, like, this person that I, gave up my life for was gonna be the person, and, like, I was so ashamed. I remember I seen my mom for the first time, and she looked at me. She's like, "Hi, baby." And I'm like, "Hi, Mom." I wouldn't look her in the eyes. I couldn't, because I knew the moment that I would, I was gonna break. The moment that I did, she knew. She knew the moment that I made eye contact with her. She goes, "You're pregnant, aren't you?" Just shook my head, "Yeah." "Yep, I am, Mom." And, like, to show you about, like, the thing that sucks about it the most is, like, we were trying because he said he wanted to be a dad, but then he just threw me away. He, no child deserves to go through what I was going through at that point in my life. Remember, taking a pregnancy test for the first time, because he wouldn't buy me one, but my family did. I remember when it popped up, just 2 little pink lines, and, like, a part of me already knew, like, I knew. And remember, I went to the hospital and did a blood test, and I sent it to him, and he already had a new girl in the house. And that girl that he went to go meet was already there. And what he said to me has forever stuck in my head. He said to me, "We'll get an abortion. I don't want it." And then, trigger warning, his new girl said, "If you don't, I will harm you and take it out myself." I don't know if you get what I'm saying by that, but yeah. Months and months after my whole pregnancy, basically, I was harassed and threatened because he did not want me to have his child. But how I was raised is, if you make the child, you keep the child. And if I didn't get pregnant, I wouldn't be here, because I truly believed to this day that if I wouldn't have gotten pregnant, I probably would have died by his hands, one way or another. Getting pregnant is what saved me. Oh, I know, heavy shit, yo. And I ain't even going into the deep shit, but, yeah. Surprise, I did have a child, all on my own. And I now 31, and my child is now super close to becoming a teenager, and I am still doing it alone. Yeah, that's how I became a single mom. like I said, there is more details, but at the same time, like I said, there's quite a bit of trauma that's along with it too. And my mind has blocked quite a bit of it out. I think it's a way of protecting itself because it got pretty bad there for a while. So, in the next episode, I think I'm gonna discuss having my child because it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Thank you, Lost Souls. I will see you in the next episode. Bye.